or Watcharee Kulprasit.
Miss Hashimi, please stop your share, your slides. Stop share.
Okay. I will stop. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, good morning, everyone from Thailand. My name is Watcharee. Today, my topic of presentation is about multimodal feedback, a real challenge in EFL writing pedagogy. Okay. So when we talk about the feedback, in the writing course, of course, the most familiar one is the conventional mode, that is the written feedback, right? But when the technology is integrated into our every single aspect of our life, these also including, education. So the feedback process itself is also changing. So there are a variety of new ways to provide feedback. So the feedback itself can be a single form or a combination of different types of feedback when you give to the students through, the use of the technology. So there comes the multimodal feedback. But before we're talking about the multimodal feedback, let's take a look at the objective of my presentation today. So it is going to discuss how multimodal feedback is a real challenge in the EFL writing pedagogy and how it can be formatively integrated into such a writing context. Okay. So first, basically, let's start with the definition of the multimodal feedback. According to Thomas 2019, multimodal feedback is a mix of various modes and types of technology-mediated advice or criticism. So this type of feedback includes video, graphics, audio, written text given in the learning process, especially in the area of language learning. And it is claimed that it practically works especially in the second language writing pedagogy. So let's see how it works. Okay, first, it helps establish a dialectic environment when you use this kind of feedback because, in this kind of environment, it promotes a negotiation between the teacher and the student for their language development, especially in the writing class. And at the same time, it also promotes personalized learning and encourages students' engagement in their own language learning and skill development. And of course, because of its nature, the nature of the multimodal feedback itself, it suits various students' learning styles. And of course, it gives more opportunity for them to learn from, different types of feedback because it's embraced a great number of concerns, the students' writing concern without feeling overwhelmed. So this kind of feedback contributes to feedback decoding for the students' better understanding. So when the student understand the feedback, so they can use this feedback to help polish their work. And this help improve or increase their motivation for polishing their work. And on the contrary, it reduces their possibility for feedback ignorance as well. And last but not least, it also helps develop a close relationship between the teacher and the student, through the negotiation in the dialectic environment that this kind of feedback helps to create. But in the EFL writing pedagogical context, I believe that it's a real challenge. Why? Because multimodal feedback is a more complex task for not only the teacher, but the students themselves. In terms of, the process itself, the feedback process, or the nature of the feedback itself, or even the access to different types of feedback. On the part of the teacher, okay, this kind of feedback is a more time-consuming task for the teacher, to use different kinds of feedback to suit their students' writing concerns, which of course there are many students' writing concern, especially for the EFL students. And this feedback should be should suit the nature of the writing assignment, or the writing task, or the writing activities. And of course, it must suit the students' different learning styles as well. On the part of the students, I mean the EFL students here, the dialectic environment rarely occurs in this kind of, writing context, which is different from that in the second language writing pedagogy. Why? Because of their, the students' limited language proficiency. So it probably takes a longer time for them to decode different types of feedback, to digest that feedback. So this feedback is quite overwhelming for them. So they probably dismiss some criticism, some suggestion for their, writing improvement, and this probably leads to a lack of commitment to improve their work or improve their writing skill. Whereas it also provokes their anxiety in their language learning and skill development. That's why it also helps decrease their motivation or even blocks their mind, on their language learning and skill development. So how can we deal with these problems? So here is the formative implementation of the multimodal feedback in the EFL writing context. So during the first week, of the writing course, there should be an orientation week. That is, the concept of the multimodal feedback should be introduced to the students to let them know or have some idea what it is, how it works, or especially the benefits they can get from this type of feedback, And after that, there should be a negotiation between the teacher and the student on the formative pedagogical implementation of this type of feedback in the writing course. So in the negotiation, the student and the teacher have 4 major components to talk about to make an agreement. The first thing is about tools, and the second thing is about the modes of feedback. Of course, language is another important factor for giving feedback. And the last one is the different stages of, writing process in the writing course. That is, when do we have to include this type of feedback in the writing stage? Okay, so let's take a look at the first one. So both the teacher and the students must have a mutual agreement on tools. Which channel do you want to give and receive the multimodal feedback? So it can be the social media, Google application, or any teleconferencing platforms or instant messaging application or platforms. And the next one is the merits of the feedback. So the teacher and the student must design the 3 dimensions of the feedback modes here, whether the feedback is going to be the written one or the oral one, or both of them, or the feedback itself must be a graphic, videos, audio, or written text. Or is it going to be the open feedback, group feedback, or small group feedback, or the personalized or individual feedback for the, a particular student. And of course, as I said earlier, language is an important factor. So both the teacher and the student must decide which language they are going to use to give the feedback. It can be the L1, the first language, and L2 in this case, it can be, the English language, or both of them, a mix of these two languages. And finally, when do you want to include this feedback into your writing process? Is it going to be the pre-writing process, or while writing process, or post-writing process? Or, it can be in all the stages in the writing process. So to let you have a clearer picture, here is an example model of formative implementation of multimodal feedback in the EFL writing pedagogy. Okay, so in the pre-writing stage, the second language or the English is recommended to give the oral open feedback, through the audios or video feedback on the platform like teleconferencing or social media, to help the student brainstorm the ideas to write. And the next stage of the writing is the while writing stage. So both languages can be used to give different modes of feedback, to help your students write. So it can be done through different channels. And in the post-writing stage of the writing process, the second language, once again, or English, is recommended to be used to give the written personalized feedback for each student, to each student. So in this stage, the teacher can help each student individually to develop their writing skill, to master their language skill in terms of writing through different channels. Okay, and all of this is just a tangible example of how technology can be used, for developing our multiliteracy and exceed the limits of our traditional language learning and skill development, especially in terms of, writing pedagogy. It is a real but what challenge in the EFL writing pedagogy. And that's all for my presentation. Do you have any question? Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Professor Watcharee, for giving us the importance of the multimodal feedback, the different ways how to receive feedback from our students. And we know that in the learning process, receiving feedback plays very important role. So, okay, so anyone please? Would you like to give insights or ask question on this concern? Then?
Okay. If there's no one who would ask, I'd like to ask Watcharee, Kulprasit, about your EFL post writing. And you said that you found that the student use L2.
Right.
In writing. Why not L1?
Because it's going to be a language model.
Yeah. Let me finish my question.
Oh, okay. So I'm sorry.
For my let's say my opinion, my perception, to get a clearer picture of what they are thinking, for the non-native English students, they might, express better in their own language. It's what just my let's
Okay,
say.
I understand your point. Yeah. Yes, As I said earlier, this is just an example model. So my suggestion is the second language. Why? Because, you know, in the while writing process, in the while writing stage, both language can be used. So at the final stage, the second language should be the role model for them, once again, to help them improve their writing, you know.
Yes,
So
sir.
the
In
teacher
terms-
feedback can be the role language model for them.
I agree. But in terms of
Mhm.
feedback, you know, they can, put everything out of their minds to, for someone to hear. They can write it in Thai or in, some other languages that they have the native speaking skills there. Just, my concern a little bit. All right. Thank you very
Yeah,
much for your answer.
Hello.
thank you.ค่ะ.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm so sorry because I cannot follow about EFL and MMF. Can you explain me again? EFL, MMF.
MMF is the multimodal feedback.
Okay. EFL.
And the EFL is the English,
Oh,
the English
yeah.
As a
Yeah.
foreign language.
as a foreign language. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So very good. Very good presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
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 Yeah. So
Please.
thank you so much, Professor Watcharee. Let's give her a warm round of applause. Okay.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you. I'm giving back to Professor Supinda.
Thank you so much. And thank you very much for your hard working, both